Healing from Childhood Trauma. Today I have a case study from a female subscriber to share with all of you. She details throughout her email her experience growing up in a dysfunctional home. She had it all, mummy issues, daddy issues, you name it. This affected her self-esteem and her ability to choose good men in her life. The good news is she turned her life around because she found Christ, and she's working to become a traditional feminine woman with godly values. So I think this is beautiful, and there's a lot to learn from this. Whether you are a man or a woman watching, I know plenty of you on this channel have unresolved issues from your past, and you will be able to relate. So let's break down her childhood story and see what we can learn from her experience. I will keep her name private to protect her identity though. So we're going to refer to her as Jessica. And I'm going to start off as well with a Bible verse to kind of encompass everything we're going to be saying today. Proverbs 22 verse 6. Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Let's begin. She says, "Hi Christian, let me start off with my early childhood. My life started in Poland. I'm half Polish, so that's awesome. Around the age of 3, I slightly remember spending most days inside with a brief memory of sometimes attending preschool. I want to start off with a brief description of my parents. I really like the way she structured this. Before we even get into what happened to her, we're going to see the background from her father and mother and see how their own issues had a massive role in how they raised her. So, ladies first, let's begin with her mother. My mother grew up in a poor, underdeveloped countryside. She had a difficult childhood, witnessing the loss of her own mother at age 13. So already she doesn't actually have a mother. Gets cut short during her early teenage years. Very painful. She also witnessed abuse in her household. Her main carer became her own grandmother due to her own father having more interest in marrying the next woman as soon as her mother died. So picture that, you're a 13-year-old girl, or boy for the guys watching, your mother dies, and then your dad goes off, marries some other woman, and doesn't care about you. He just disappears from your life. And the only one who raises you is your mother. So Jessica's mother grew up with a bad mother figure, which was the grandmother, and had no father figure. So didn't even know what to look for in men. You're going to see how this ties into what happens next. My father grew up in a city area. He's older than my mum by a couple of years. Before getting into a relationship with my mother, he managed to get married and have a baby girl with a different woman. The marriage didn't last long, as he went on to my mother very quickly. Does that sound like a very faithful man to you? I don't think so. So this is the parents. Now let's see how Jessica's upbringing began. At the age of 5, I moved into England. I'm also half English. I started primary school and was living with my mum, dad, and my younger sister. From that age, I can remember some arguing happening, but it wasn't as clear for me until later years onwards. I remember brief sightings of police and troubles between my parents. That's not a normal environment. Around the age 7, I can clearly remember everything. They hid away their arguing, but it was devastating and surprising for us to see our dad being taken away by the police through our bedroom window. So she's a 7-year-old girl, and her father, who's meant to be her protector, her leader, a provider, who's meant to be an example of what she should look for in a man. He's meant to discipline her, keep her safe, build up her confidence. He's been taken away by the police because obviously he's not a good father or a good husband. These arguments mainly revolved around cheating. My dad is not a respectful man, and neither is my mum a respectful woman. Boy, does that make for one toxic relationship. So the parents aren't compatible. They don't have the same values, so they really can't grow together or build a lifelong bond. Not to mention, if they're both unfaithful, they don't value the sanctity of a commitment. They have wounds that they haven't recovered from. He likes women a little too much and already had several girlfriends. So he has 7 women on the side. And acted like my mum should never get into his business. From what I know from my parents now, is that my mum found several evidences of him cheating and vice versa. So the mother isn't innocent either. You see, this is why it's so dangerous when people who are incompatible, who are not marriage material, don't actually want a relationship and are not family oriented, get together and have children. It doesn't just damage each other, it severely messes up the children. Nobody talks about that, but the ones who suffer the most are the kids. Continuing on. I remember being in and out of therapy at my primary school due to police visiting us constantly. I didn't understand much as a child, but I remember the sleepless nights and the shedded tears of seeing my father being taken away and having the police speak to me as a child, asking difficult questions of what I witnessed when I never really had an answer. That is no environment for a child to grow up in. You see, childhood is meant to be a place of safety, of peace, of comfort. Children need that environment with a masculine father and a feminine mother that love each other. Remember, the best way to love your children is to love your spouse. So children need to witness that with their parents. And when this happens, and they have a healthy connection with both of them, they develop emotional intelligence, social skills, confidence, boundaries, standards for themselves, right? They learn respect. They learn how to love. They are disciplined. Their life is given structure and order, and more importantly, it gives them an identity that gives them self-esteem, okay? You give them the building blocks they need to really become a person, an individual. Now, this is what children should have, and it can only happen in that environment, right? With a traditional family structure, man is the head of the home and the woman is the heart of the home. And when children don't have this, or they witness neglect, they go through neglect, emotional, physical, or mental abuse. In this case, you witness parents cheating, arguing, fighting, a divorce. You go through any other event or experience that is severe and damages your ability to trust in others. What's going to happen is, as a child, you don't have the life experience, the emotional capacity, or the intelligence to understand what is going on. So when a child has anything severe happen to them, it causes them to withdraw inward. And they can either become very codependent as a coping mechanism, and some even narcissistic, very selfish, because this puts them in fight or flight, in survival mode. And this keeps them in a childlike state. And unless they heal from this, they never grow out of it. Okay, which means then they become dysfunctional. They don't know how to relate to others. They struggle to have healthy relationships, friendships, and connections with people throughout their life, right? They tend to engage in high-risk behaviors as a side effect. Drug and alcohol abuse. They tend to have addictive personalities. They tend to engage in cheating, gambling. They tend to be very bad with money. Take poor care of their health because they don't care. They're unable to because they're worried about surviving. They don't know how to live. So when you grow up in this environment, again, you're in survival mode. And all the other children around you who grow up in happy homes, they learn how to live. They get their identity, their self-esteem, their confidence, and they blossom into healthy adults. And then they emulate the healthy relationships they witnessed in their own family. When they come of age, they know how to do that. But for you guys and gals who don't grow up in a healthy home, you need to heal and then learn what works. If not, it is very likely that you will emulate what you saw in your environment growing up, because that's the only information you have to apply. It's all you know. And this can also come with mental health issues, anxiety, and other symptoms of trauma, right? Sleeplessness. You will become very lonely, right? You push people away. You're a bad communicator. You kind of let people walk all over you. Because you're desperate for love and you seek it in everything and anything. You start seeking external attention and validation because you just want to be noticed. You're kind of seeking the love you never got as a child. And this is very dangerous. And this is why so many people have terrible relationships. So if your childhood wasn't built around safety, peace, security, stability, and instead there's a pattern of emotional highs and lows, there's danger, there's fear, there's uncertainty, and you don't heal from that, and you don't know how to trust in others, it will be near impossible for you to have a healthy relationship until you heal. And that's when you need God, because it's the only way. Let's continue on. So I usually sat around with my sister in our bedroom that we used to share, especially when serious talks were happening between parents and police. And I was in charge of taking care of my sister and keeping her busy just so they could speak in peace without us hearing. That is no upbringing for a child. After a year or so, all of this ended. My father and mother split up. This was my greatest nightmare as a child. What was I just saying before? Witnessing a divorce, childhood trauma. This can severely fracture the identity of a child because they don't know what's going on. Day by day, I could not get over the fact that I was living with a single mother. I always felt the need of a father's presence. I'm going to repeat that one more time. I always felt the need of my father's presence. I enjoyed his company and shared good memories. You see, and I mentioned this in my book, a daughter, when it comes to her father, he's either her first love or her first heartbreak. And if she doesn't heal from that heartbreak, she will bleed on everyone. See how important it is? How much she needed him? And this is a young girl telling you. This is the damage it does. Within the next year or so, my parents went their own ways. My mother met a new guy through a dating portal. And my father also met a new woman the same way. After some time of my mother speaking to a new partner online, she accepted him to fly to England and stay with us for 2 weeks. He was a divorced man with a child who lives with his mother. And this is such a dangerous thing, like single fathers and single mothers, when they mix kids with other families, man, you just end up mixing up the bloodline. You know, and you end up raising someone else's seed. And it's a very, very dangerous thing. It's dysfunctional. It's like you can see the pattern, how it just repeats. After meeting him, time flew past pretty fast, and within a blink of an eye, my mother's new partner became a member of the family. Keep in mind, we all know how the mother was raised. She chose the wrong man, but she is also a cheater. Because Jessica's father was a cheater, but just so was Jessica's mother. And then she's finding some other guy who's going to come in, who's a single dad. What about him? Do we know what happened with his situation? Was it the ex-wife's fault? Was it his? You know, there's no mention here. But let's find out, shall we? Because remember, actions speak louder than words. So he came over, he became a member of the family, things were normal and calm, these were new beginnings. A year or so flew by quickly and my mother had fallen pregnant. Within that time, I could remember some betrayal in their relationship. Well, we kind of knew that was going to happen. Him going away and seeing other women, well, he was a single father. Well, it sounds like he was the problem. Your mother, Jessica's mother, did not vet this man's character or background because she does not know what to look for. She doesn't know what makes a man husband material. She never had a father to raise her. because her own father had left her. You see, Jessica's mother was messed up and she messed her daughter up. But the good news is Jessica she's the one to break the generational curse on the family. She's turned it all around now, which we're going to see. So the stepdad is going away and seeing other women. And I remember seeing my mum with my father not acting in an appropriate manner. Arguments started within the time period between them. It was nothing dramatic, just a regular argument. And at the time, I was not even aware it was happening. Sometimes that is how minor it was. Yeah, you're used to that cycle of just fighting, dysfunction, there's no peace. So for you, it's almost like you become desensitized to it. You become numb. After my brother had been born, things were getting a lot more intense. Years flew by and things were okay at the start. But by the end of the next 4 to 5 years, things became extreme. My mother's partner got into enough trouble throughout this time for going away in the car after drinking and arguing with my mum and getting caught out for drunk driving. And he had his license taken away for 2 years. Again, look at this man's behavior. He's a single dad, so he can't choose a good woman. We know he's cheating on Jessica's mother, who he's had a child with. He most likely cheated on the previous woman before, so this man has no respect for women. He cheats on the women that birth his own children. That is one weak man. That is cowardly. That is unfaithful. And he doesn't even have enough self-control to control his drink. Again, a weak man. And look at the choices he's making. He's cheating, going after the wrong women. This man also has his issues. It's like broken people, damaged people always end up attracting those that are just like them. Until eventually one of them wakes up and turns things around. Or else the cycle will keep repeating. Funny how that works. There was always a lack of discipline, especially when my brother was born. Children always got their way no matter what they did. If there's no strong father figure who's calm, his masculine presence soothes everyone. He puts everybody in their place. If that doesn't happen, children will do whatever they want. And this is why we have a lot of boys and girls growing up today, and they're entitled, they're selfish, they're vain, they're prideful, because they're raised in homes like this. If you don't respect the figure of authority, which is your father, how are you going to respect others when you become of age? You'll become a brat, right? And we look at all the statistics of children, especially boys who grow up without a father, they become more prone to violence, more prone to get into crime, tend to drop out of school, get involved in, become more suicidal. It's like unfaithful, more aggressive, poor social skills. They tend to be less ambitious. Because if there's no man to teach the boy how to transition into manhood, he will forever remain a boy. So children always got their way no matter what they did. My brother was always a troublemaker, but it was always ignored at the time. Arguments sparked up so much more often. I was in my early teenage years, and I started to notice the use of alcohol in my mother and her partner, especially when going to parties. Instead of raising their families, they're out getting drunk at parties. You don't do that. I remember when I was a kid, my parents didn't drink at all. We did everything together as a family. People would ask my parents out, and my parents said, no, we're staying at home with our children, me and my brother, and they raised us. And I'm eternally grateful for growing up in that family, in that traditional structure. It did wonders for my confidence. This is why I'm so passionate about family, because I had that. I know the value of it. And when I compare my situation to those around me, I see the pain and the hurt in so many people. And I'm just looking at that contrast right there. My parents, no, we don't party. We raise our children together as a husband and wife. What is this family doing? They're getting drunk and they're going partying. And they got a kid, they got a boy who's aggressive, no respect, and they've got Jessica who needs love and attention, but they're not giving it to her. Instead, they're selfish and they care about themselves. You see this with a lot of single mums and single dads. It's like they're almost cursed because they've screwed themselves up so badly and they leave the father or the mother that they had that child with, and then they go off and meet another partner. And it's like, but that forever bond with the actual father or mother is still there and it can't be broken. And it's like, they're messed up, they're damaged. And then they keep getting into like a cycle of abusive partners, messed up partners, and their relationships just very seldom work out. They're going to parties, getting drunk, and they're raising children. Yeah, parents of the year, right? I don't think so. I remember them getting along with people of bad intentions. Well, like attracts like. For example, a friend they had who was a drug dealer. I didn't understand much, but I knew that stink of cannabis in his home. I witnessed them in bad company. What it speaks about in Corinthians in the Bible. Bad company corrupts good morals. I've repeated this verse, 1,000 times? See, why do I repeat things? Guys, why do I always repeat the principle? Because it's not so often as we need to be taught, but need to be reminded. The basics, the fundamentals. Constantly reapplying it, right, through practice. That's how it sticks in your mind and it becomes a habit and eventually becomes part of your outlook on life. That's why I always repeat these things, so you don't forget it. Every time after that company, a fight broke out. My mother and her partner were arguing. The arguments were so intense that cussing was the most normal thing they could do. It started off with a push, a grab, or a slap. No child should ever see that between their parents. I started to witness this much more often. As a young girl, I always wanted to be my mother's defense. Through the bad example they gave their children, I got involved easily as simply as swearing to her partner in a sign of defense. So she's trying to protect her mother from the stepdad. That is heartbreaking. My mother was always hysterically crying, and I've seen her being held up to the wall, beat to the ground, bruised and hit. I have seen pure abuse which destroyed me inside out. What did I just say towards the beginning of the video? When a child witnesses these things, it will wound them. So she's a young girl, and think back to what she said when her father left. It hurt her. She wanted to be in her father's presence. That's what a young girl needs. So she can learn how to trust in a man, love a man, appreciate a man, and have the blueprint of what to look for in a man. But she didn't have a father. Then she has a stepdad. Hopefully he can be an example. But this guy is probably even worse than her actual father. Imagine that, you're a young girl and you witness your mother being beaten by the stepdad. How does that make you then view men? You're going to be very scared of them. This is horrible. This became a cycle. They went out somewhere to their friends, they got drunk, they came home and started another argument. Within every argument, I saw police at my house. I had police speak to me, and I heard my mum make accusations of abuse and even rape to the police. You know, I really commend Jessica for sending this email to me because this is very brave. About 75% of all of my viewers are male, but the rest are female. And I'm hoping some of the ladies watching can really learn from this. Ladies, you must choose a good man. Choose a godly man who has self-control, who's faithful, who has his lust in check, who's a family man, or else you can end up with a guy like this. And guys, don't ever choose a non-traditional woman. Stay away from women that are messed up, because that will also be your outcome. This is why I do these videos, to educate you. I don't want anyone to go through this. These are things that you can avoid, fellas. All of this just seemed to happen every now and again. As the years went by, things didn't change. The cycle of abuse, apologies, and police, and then with chocolates and flowers became the usual. Yeah, it's like you're not supposed to give an apology with a gift. You're supposed to give an apology by repentance. Repentance means a change of mind, right? And we don't just repent when we turn from our sin and seek forgiveness from God, but when we wound our partner, a friend, or a family member, you should feel bad about what you've done to them, turn from it, change your behavior. That's how you show a real apology. And then if you want to on the side, then you can give some chocolates and flowers and be romantic if you want, from time to time, of course. But it's your behavior and your heart that needs to change. It only got worse. I got older and I only got more irritated and more upset. One of the key moments I remember was New Year's Eve, where it was only us as a family. Not even midnight hit and things started off. Yeah, Happy New Year, right? I remember her partner punching a hole in the wall with his fist and walking around with a knife, scaring us that he will kill us or himself. I've got nothing to say. He knew I watched every second of this. I was there crying in both of their faces, begging for this to stop. My sister was always seeking help and trying to reach out to my dad in these moments, or calling the police and comforting my brother. Do you see how it damages the children? Because the parents are so messed up. The parents are so immature, so unworthy of having a relationship, but then they still go and have sex, right? They go and have sex, they have kids, and they mess their kids up because of their sin, because of their issues. What do I always say, guys? You're responsible for the quality of partner that you choose. Please learn from this, especially if you're young. Use this to your advantage. This continued for the next few years. At the age of 16 in 2019, I became a victim of this myself. I was home and my parents had been on a night out drinking at their friend's house. I remember my siblings being there with them. I came up to the doors as soon as they arrived and was petrified to see my siblings cry their eye out hysterically, with my mother entering the house, with a partner alongside them. When they entered, screaming happened right away, and I didn't understand what was going on, but I saw my mum being pushed around by my partner and being hit. And as of that, I started verbally insulting him, intimidating him to the point where he threw something metal at me while verbally insulting me back. And this is what you'll see, like men, when they become aggressive or violent, they will show that outwardly because men are overt, right? They do it with action. Because women are physically weaker than a man, they will use it, they will go about destroying the man emotionally or psychologically, verbal slander, because she's not going to overpower a guy physically. And really, what was she going to do? Hit the guy? No. So the only thing she could think of was to insult him, to get him to shake him out of his satanic rage, right? And then he goes and throws something at her. Yeah, no wonder this guy was a single dad. That woman probably cut this guy off and said, I don't want anything to do with him. And he doesn't change. My collarbone had been cut, and I had a cut on my collarbone from a metal cigar box he threw at me, leaving it puffy and bruised. Tell you what, I don't have a sister. Obviously, I'm young, I don't have a daughter, I don't have children yet. Man, if some guy did that, I'm just saying, and then he's going to go right to hell for what he did. That is disgusting. That is the weakest man on the planet, other than a man who will use a woman for sex, is a guy who hits women and beats them physically. That is the weakest man ever. There's no debating. Police arrived, as always, and he wasn't there. He always fled to his friend's house or stayed overnight at a car park to not speak with the police. What a coward. What a pussy. What a pussy. That's what he is. As of being 16 and being considered more as an adult here in England, I had the chance to imprison him through making a lawsuit. Once again, I did not take further action. Yeah, you were so scared, you don't really know what to do. You're worried that even if you did that, he's going to come after you. He returned again with apologies, flowers and chocolates. Yeah, as if that's going to make a difference. But like always, we took him back. Since that incident in 2019, there were no repetitions of abuse. It was about time he took this seriously and stopped. As of today, arguments still happen. He flees away and sleeps in his car for days. He still sends threats of killing himself, with sending once Google images of cuts to my mother to make her worry. So he's a manipulator, he's a coward, he's a cheater, he's a wife beater, he's an insecure man, but underneath it all, he's godless, he's broken. There's definitely some signs of mental health issues there. Threatening to kill himself. Yeah, that's not normal. He still continues his childish behavior, but the abuse part has finally ended. I still live in a very dysfunctional household where children do whatever they want. My sister self-harms and is severely depressed on many pills. Again, what did I say at the beginning? This is how it affects children. There's residual trauma. Her sister is so broken. How is she going to find a good man? Is she going to know what to look for? I do hope Jessica teaches her, because she does watch my channel and I've coached her and I've helped her out. I do hope when she becomes a little bit older, bring her to my content. Or there's female YouTubers that I recommend. It's specifically Laurie Alexander. She's a very good Christian woman and she does teach younger women. And it's exactly what the Bible says in Titus verses 4 through 5. How mothers should raise daughters. That older women may teach the younger women to be sober, to love their husbands and to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers of the home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the words of God may not be blasphemed. See, older women should be teaching younger women to be good wives, to be good mothers, to teach them what to look for and what to avoid in men. So I think for any women watching, and I'll link her YouTube channel in the description so you can check it out, Laurie Alexander, she posts a lot of lovely posts on Instagram, which I do share in my stories, because she's very godly. She does it all from a biblical foundation. So for the ladies who want to learn about biblical womanhood, I really recommend her. For you, Jessica, I know I've told you about her, but definitely recommend that to your sister and bring her to God as well. It will help her. Because she's self-harming, because she's seeking attention, she's suffering, right? And yeah, she's depressed on many pills. That's not healthy. And my brother is a spoiled child who always gets his way. Yeah, because he was raised by a weak father who was a coward and a pussy. My mother is overly protective and cannot take control over her own children's behavior. I respect and love my mother, but these are bold things she does which are not right. There is lack of privacy in my household. Talking is no longer a form of communication, but screaming. All of these traumatic events that took place have impacted me severely. It left me emotionally wrecked, and as a young child, I did not understand much and always responded in tears. I was selfless and couldn't help myself but cry. And that's when you should have had your father to come to hug you, to love you, to make you feel safe, to open you up emotionally and let you talk it out and you would be fine. But he wasn't there. And then your mother, she's selfish, she's doing her own thing, she's messed up as well. And this is the thing, messed up parents only create damaged kids. They perpetuate the same cycle. It's like, if you as a man or a woman don't have yourself in order mentally, emotionally, and don't prepare and plan ahead for family, for relationship, for marriage, if you can't even have a healthy relationship with your spouse, what makes you think you're going to raise your children right? It's just not going to happen. But the good news is she's young, she's learning, and she can use it. And I've spoken to her, and she says she's passionate about being a wife and a mum. She wants to have a good man. She goes to church. She's a good Christian girl. and she really wants to do things the right way. And God is slowly mending her heart. So I'm very happy to hear that. And to see everything she's went through, and she still has a positive outlook on life, that's a tough girl. So well done, Jessica. You should be proud of yourself. Remember, guys, femininity grows through praise and affection. And it's torn down with arguments, with bitterness. This is why the Bible says to men, to husbands, to be soft and calm with your wives. Do not be harsh with them. See, women have very fragile hearts, men. And when you shout and raise your voice or you threaten them, it's going to scare them. And they close off emotionally. And when she's closed off emotionally, the legs stay closed, fellas. Okay, she's not going to want to give herself to you. She won't be able to be vulnerable and submit to you when you're an abusive, controlling man. So for the men watching as well, get yourself in order too. Okay, I'm going after everyone today. But I want you to see, this is what happens to a woman when she's raised in a broken home. It's dangerous, it really is. In my teenage years, as of age 14, I started to seek validation and attention. Well, it's one of the symptoms of daddy issues, isn't it? Speaking to boys on a day-to-day basis, having a high ego thinking I'm worth so much. Well, I've seen her picture, she's a very pretty girl. But again, her self-esteem was damaged. What do I say all the time? Damaged women seek attention and validation, but women who are secure and stable seek only a man's presence and love. Two very different things. Same thing for men as well. Damaged men seek women's attention, but men that are right with God, they've got their self-esteem, they only want a good woman's love and affection. Most certainly, I believed I was never worthy of any respect. And I started looking for validation in boys who would fulfill this empty feeling, the feeling your father should have filled in. Through what I was going through at home, I wanted to be rebellious in revenge to my mother and her partner. I was full of grief and felt the need to be a popular girl in school, speak to boys daily and disrespect myself. Being noticed was a form of my way to feel better. I enjoyed people noticing me and hearing compliments. And I was feeling a wrong type of self-worth. Guys, what do I always talk about low self-esteem, validation? This is how it's created. This is a woman telling you from her experience how the damage she went through caused her to live this way. The validation seeking continued until I was 17. Only then I realized how disgusting this was. I no longer enjoyed to attract men's attention or tolerate the disrespectful comments. Smart woman. See, she changed. She began to heal. You can do everything through Christ who strengthens me. That verse is from Philippians. I became a very disrespectful girl in the age of 14 when my faith had no meaning to me. It was gone completely. Only at 16, this slowly started bouncing back at me, but only now recently, reconnecting with Christ is in its highest levels. Praise be to God. Well done. What I saw at home stood out to me. I never viewed any relationship I would have as serious. Exactly, because you grow up and you see fighting, breaking up, getting back together. There's just fear, there's abuse, there's shouting, there's no love. This isn't going to last, this isn't lifelong. So you tend to view relationships the same way. Like, it's something I shouldn't take of any importance. It's nothing. I saw men as thirsty animals who will go for women who look good, and that's all that mattered. So I always tried my best to look attractive just so I could get a male's attention. I never moved forward into doing anything with the boys other than messaging them. Good, so she did keep her honor. So she did the right thing. But I had very disrespectful messages where everything was about sex. It was always the main topic. I always rolled on with what guys wanted to do. And it was always them who started this sexual conversation, and I just followed through by replying. I always faced pain of not having my father by my side. And I don't see him often, once in every 3 months if I'm lucky. He lives only 30 minutes away, but it's always overworking and busy. You can try to reach out to him and at least have a heart-to-heart where you forgive him. Now, I want to say this to everyone watching as well, not just to her. But it may not seem like it, but trust me, your parents did the best they could with what they knew. And I've said this many times, which is, whilst you don't get to choose what family you're born into, you sure get to choose the family that comes from you. So as a woman, prepare to be a wife and a mum, choose a good man who's family oriented. For the men, prepare for fatherhood and husbandship and choose a good godly woman who's also done the same. And you'll live a peaceful life. And you can teach your children the things you weren't. If not, you will suffer the same fate as your messed up parents. And then that's on you. And that pain, that regret can sting forever. That's just a fact. I had more and more sleepless nights when I was getting older. I mentioned that earlier, didn't I? Sleeplessness. Staying up, crying that my father was never here and how they split up hurt me. Again, I'll repeat it one more time. Women have very fragile hearts. This is going to deeply wound her. And when she's hurt and she's still picking up the pieces, she's in no place to love or form a healthy relation because she's still broken. Especially when my connection with my father is comfortable but bitter, I find it extremely painful for never hearing the words "I love you" come out from him. To the point, I fear to say them to him myself. That's how distant we are. That's a shame. Back to my teenage years, I always looked up to elder men. I was always interested in those who were older and seeked a man who I would feel safe with and view him as my protector. At the age of 12, I already had my eyes on a boy who was 16. This is known as daddy issues, she says. This was diagnosed in me already. At the time being, it felt normal and comforting. Speaking to an older boy felt special. I felt like this man who could take care of me, but looking back now, I feel disgusted. Exactly. My standards when it came to men were at the lowest. As soon as a guy would show interest in me, I would give in and speak to him. She was desperate for it because she was seeking love in the wrong places. And this is the thing, guys. We all seek love in everything we do, whether we go about doing it a righteous way or a self-righteous way. Nevertheless, we always seek love. So she's misinterpreting validation for love. This is how much validation mattered to me. I had no self-worth and used this as a way of feeling something. There you go. I always felt emotionally incomplete and I never knew my self-worth. Through what I seen, I felt wrecked. I was on an emotional roller coaster where I had no self-control and did not even know how to react in certain situations. Because you weren't taught. You weren't educated on these things, but you're learning now. So you're heading in the right direction. I believe that your teenage years are difficult enough trying to find yourself and understand yourself during puberty. Family problems should have such a deep influence on me during that stage. I was in constant fear and worry and I could not concentrate in school after any action like this. I felt sick and could never function normally. Exactly, that fight or flight dysregulates your nervous system because you're in survival mode. So the trauma gets locked up in your physiology. It's like residual, it stays there for a long time. And again, it prevents you from growing emotionally. You stay stunted, emotionally speaking. Now I'll share a little story with all of you quickly about me. Even though I grew up in a very healthy home, there was one incident and it was towards my senior year at school. I was like 17, 18. And my parents had a fight and it was something to do with one of my uncle who married the wrong woman and everybody was cutting his wife out of the picture because they had a divorce because she was cheating on him. And they were trying to reach out to my family. My parents were fighting about it because she was a bad woman. And they were shouting about it and they had an argument. And I'd never seen my parents fight. So I was like, what is this? And again, nothing to that level that I've explained through her story, but it was just like an argument. You know, they were just arguing, you know. And then they didn't talk for a few days. That happened once. And I will never forget how much that affected me as well, even though that wasn't something serious. Because I was like, whoa, what's going on here? They didn't talk for a few days. And in that small window, just to show you how serious this is, me and my brother, we were so scared of like what was going on because we weren't used to this. I had the same thing. I couldn't function normally for the next few weeks. Even when they went back to talking, it took a while for my nervous system to relax and get back into the flow of everything being safe. So what happened? Over my arms, I had like these patches, like goosebumps. Like goosebumps came out on my arms. Like when you feel fear, your adrenaline, it pops, fight or flight. And I had these goosebumps pop up on my arms. And they stayed there for like months. Even after everything died down and my parents spoke about everything, eventually the goosebumps left because my nervous system started to regulate normally again. So even with that, it caused that for me. And my brother had the same thing, funnily enough. And obviously he recovered too. So I want you to understand, even at that age, something small like that can affect children. Because you grew up in that environment and then something disrupts safety and you're scared. You don't know how to deal with it. So your body goes into survival mode as a response. That's it. That's what happens. And children should never have to go through that. And again, it's nothing to what she went through, but I just wanted to share that. I never thought about self-respect or how to be a woman. I was lost and was looking for comfort in any guy. Looking back on this, I think to myself how ridiculous this looks and sounds. But now we get to the good part, which is the end. Every bad situation can be turned into something wonderful. Remember. She said, I can confirm that what I've been through at home has left me emotionally scarred. But now I turn to Christ. I changed myself as a person. I quit drinking and smoking, became an ambitious girl who considers every action I am to take next. I'm proud to say that I'm changed, but I'm still young. I'm only 19 and I have so much to learn and grow into. Time shall heal. That is wonderful. And I'm so happy you found Christ because she's actually learning a lot about how to be a woman in a godly way. And I think that's just wonderful because God is the ultimate healer. And he can wash away your heartbreak, your pain, your sin. So I want to close this on a Bible verse. John 8 verse 32. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Give your heart to Christ, seek salvation, and live for him, and your life will work out wonderfully according to his will. So guys, that is the video for today. This is Jessica's testimony of growing up in a dysfunctional home, her experience with childhood trauma. If you can relate or you have a similar situation and you'd like me to upload it in a future video, my email is down in the description. Send me an email, write it out, and I'll be sure to upload it. With that said, hope you'll have a wonderful day. God bless all of you and your families, and I'll see you all in the next one.